Hi, everyone. Jane Applegath here, founder of the Epic Vision Zone, where we say life is too short to be quiet. Each show, we offer you an inspiring person or message to bring you closer to your big dreams so that you can live your epic life now. Thank you for being here. You can listen to the audio version on your favorite app or watch it on YouTube, and be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Indian philosopher Jiddu wrote, "The moment you have in your heart this extraordinary thing called love and feel the depth, the delight, the ecstasy of it, you will discover that for you the world is transformed." Medicine woman, mother, and mentor Kerri Hummingbird has a passion to reconnect people to the guidance of our Mother Earth. She says inside of you is a seed. Your soil needs to be fertilized so that the seed will germinate and sprout. The seed is self-love. She mentors women to rewrite the story of their lives through inner transformation, connection to essence, remembrance of purpose, and realignment to the authenticity and truth. As founder of Inner Medicine Training, she shares potent ancient traditions from the Andes and Himalayas, owning wisdom and living your purpose. Her books have hit the international best-selling charts, including the #1 international best-selling book, Inner Medicine, Becoming One with Mother Earth for the Survival of Humanity, as well as Love is Fierce, Healing the Mother Wound, plus the award-winning and best-selling book, Awakening to Me, One Woman's Journey to Self-Love, plus many more. As the host of Soul Nectar Show, Kerri inspires people to lead their lives awake with an authentic passion and purpose that positively impacts others. As a healer and mentor, she catalyzes mind shifts that transform life challenges into gifts of wisdom. Welcome, Kerri. So wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you for having me, Jane. It's just really beautiful to be here in this space with you.
Well, thank you for being here and for the work that you do. So let's get right into the work that you do, because it is so incredible. Give us an idea, for starters, what inspired you to do what you do today?
You know, my own journey into the darkness and my own grappling with my egoic consciousness after 20 years of attempting to figure myself out through my mind and through talk therapy, which was the sort of solution that was offered to me by our culture to process myself, to figure myself out, right, to create a good life. And after 20 years of doing that, I had to admit that it wasn't working and I wasn't getting the answers I needed, right? So I was taking the not feeling pills. I was, doing all the things that they said would help, but it really wasn't giving me what I needed. So, I took that journey down into the darkness. I really felt my disappointment with my life, with my choices, with the way things were working out or not working out as I had hoped. And I had to take a hard look at myself. And what I realized was that, my behavior, my lashing out behavior that I talk about in the Awakening to Me, a lot of that had to do with the fact that I wasn't being honest with myself. I wasn't being true to myself. And I wasn't heeding the call of all of those life conspired pressures to form that diamond of me. I was trying to be pretty, pleasing, polite, and avoid speaking my truth. And it irritated my mother to no end because she didn't raise me to be that way. She raised me to be strong. So I finally had to really take that leap of faith, leave everything behind except my kids, of course, and then set out on a journey to find out, okay, who am I really? What do I really want? And that's really why I took the journey. It was either that or, keep going down that dead end road and find myself with more suicidal ideation that eventually I would have given into. So I had to make that choice to survive and thrive for my kids.
Right. Yes, the courage, Kerri, that must have taken, because that is a huge leap of faith. And it is something that many of us, as we'll discuss, are afraid to face. But I have to give you credit for taking and realizing, actually, the awareness somewhere in there. There was the awareness, and the awareness gave you the light that said you need to do something else. And that is what we're going to delve into, and so powerful in our lives today. So thank you for sharing that. What motivated you to write Inner Medicine, and the meaning behind the title?
Yeah, so Inner Medicine is my latest book. And it really is my first book about something I hold very dear to my heart, what I really feel healed me, which is my path on the medicine wheel, my path with reconnection with Mother Earth, and my reconnection with indigenous teachings that actually come from my own ancestry. I am part Cherokee, and that was hidden from our family lineage because it really wasn't safe to be Native American in this country for a long time. And so, reconnecting with that part of my ancestry, being guided by that part of my ancestry to study medicine wheel teachings with several different teachers. And that has reawakened me. So, this was my first book encapsulating what I have embodied up until now on my journey of discovery into the four directions, into reconnecting with my ancestry, and also with healing myself at a soul level from some very painful prior experiences. And I talk about that in the book. But it's really a powerful uh, demonstration of my embodiment of working with the four directions: the south, the west, the north, and the east, Mother Earth and Father Sky, Great Spirit.
Mm, that sounds so beautiful. I have a question for you. When you started to go down this path of reconnecting with Mother Earth, were there those that were like, looked at you and said, "What are you doing? Maybe you need some help," other than Mother Earth? I mean, I'm just curious because it takes a lot of gumption to do that because of the way our society is, and particularly the North American society. It wouldn't be so out there in other societies, but here we are, tend to be very linear. So I'm just curious, did you get people looking at you like, I think she's gone a little too far?
Well, Jane, honestly, that was already my experience, so it
Okay.
wasn't anything new, it was just more of the same. The difference was is I decided to stop listening to everybody else. I decided to listen to myself and my soul.
Mm.
And I started to follow my soul's guidance instead of surrendering myself to what everyone expected of me. And I tell this story of when I left my relationship with my marriage, and then I walked away from psychotherapy, and I just said I'm not doing that anymore. I weaned myself off the pills. I said these are not good for me. It's not working. I don't know why I'm doing this. I mean, I'm an Ivy League educated woman. I went to Smith College, which is a really good college for women in New England. And so I have a good education. I have a good head on my shoulders, and I had a really rebellious mom who taught me better, so I knew, like, after 20 years, if this thing's not working, that's what's insane, is to keep doing it. So
Mm.
when I started following my soul, I instantly felt better. I remember the first night that I moved out of my home that I shared with my partner of 20 years. And I had not bought, but rented a space for myself, a little house for me and the kids. And the first night I spent in that house, I had instant relief. It was like I hadn't felt that good in probably a decade. And I just poured myself a bubble bath. I got in it with candlelight. I had a glass of wine. I had a few guys on text. And I was like, wow, oh my gosh, like this is so much better. And it's not because he's a terrible person. It was because I stayed in a situation far too long that wasn't aligned with who I needed to become. And I was trying to be smaller to sort of fit in with the framework of the relationship that we began when I was 22. But, I was no longer this tiny, frail, insecure little person that needed a big daddy. I was like a mama bear, and I wasn't stepping into that truth of myself. And I was afraid of rocking the boat, So when I finally, and I was calling on, Kali, and I didn't even know who Kali was, but apparently in some past lives, I know who Kali is. And I knew what I needed, and I was like, Kali, help me now. Like, this all needs to burn down, this whole forest, that everything that I created up until now, and I took ownership, everything that I created up until now is not serving me. That needs to burn down. And, something new, true, authentic needs to come in its place. And that was the space I was in. Partially. The other part of me was still in the like, I'm just going to go party and have fun, drink wine and have men, So I was also, in that conversation. So just to be in transparency, and I talk about that in Awakening to Me. But the difference is that when I started Awakening to Me, I had already been listening to my soul, and my soul told me, you're going to start a new book. And I said, oh, I've never written a book. Okay. What is it about? Awakening to Me, One Woman's Journey to Self-Love. I said, how will I know when I'm done? And my soul said, when you love yourself. Okay. And then I was guided, you're going to share everything along the way with total transparency and honesty, because you're going to chart the course out of madness with this book. So, and I think I did. It's funny because people that read that book, they tell me later, they say, Kerri, it's like every time you got into a new relationship with some new guy we knew was not the answer, we were like, no, don't do it. It's like, don't go back in the haunted house. And then there she goes into the haunted house late at night with no support and walks up the staircase. Why are you doing that? And it's because I was so trapped in this cultural conditioning that we need a man to be happy. And I really didn't find happiness until I let go of that. And then ironically, then I did have the right partner show up about a month later. But most of that's described in the first book. So yeah, so that's why I started taking a journey. I knew that my sons deserved better. They really deserved better from me. They deserved a mother that spoke her truth, that would not believe their stuff, that would bring them into a higher place within themselves, and that was strong, and somebody that they could really lean on and tell anything to. That's what they deserved. They didn't deserve who I was being up until then.
Right. Yeah. Who wasn't really you. It was not
No,
your authentic self. Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. I'm so glad I asked, because that was definitely at the back of my mind, having come from the East Coast originally. So this leads perfectly into our question of the structures of conformity. You mentioned this briefly, and tell us about these structures and their disempowerment effects. We are surrounded by them on a daily basis since we're little. In fact, when we go to a traditional school and we're told to color within the lines and to stay in our desk, and then at the office in our cubicles. So give us some insight into the structures of conformity and how they disempower us.
Yeah, so we're taught to be, as women, we're taught to be pretty pleasing and polite. So, we're not meant to ruffle feathers. We're not meant to speak what's actually on our minds and hearts. We're just, that's why we have those psychotherapy rooms. Because just, if you need to tell it to somebody, just go there. Don't bother us with it. Come to some resolution, come back here, and don't really ask for much. That's pretty much, the way it goes. And when you become a mom, the expectation is that you'll drop everything that's important to you and put 100% of your focus on your husband and your kids. And, women who do that, they end up, when the empty nest is devastating, because they don't know who they are anymore. They lost themselves back at the first birth. They have no idea who they are anymore. And so I was determined not to let that happen to me. But at the same time, it still was happening because I was really super sensitive. I cared what people thought, right? We are trained to take it personally. We're trained that the source of love is outside of ourselves. We're trained that as women, we need a man in order to be happy, and men are trained the same. They need a woman in order to make them, powerful. If they have a pretty thing on their arm, then they're powerful. And if they don't, well, they're a loser. So these structures don't really serve anyone. They tend to create this power over situation where everyone is trying to get their needs met by outside of themselves. And one time I got this really great visual from my higher guidance about what's happening in our Western culture and probably much of humanity, but is that this forest. So imagine this forest, and every tree has roots that are wrapped around other trees, and they're squeezing the other trees to get nutrients. But all trees are squeezing each other. So the only thing keeping the forest upright is the fact that everyone is squeezing each other to get what they need. But if anyone was to release that, the whole forest would fall down. And that's what's happening right now on the planet, because some people have realized that I can put my roots down into Mother Earth's soil, and I don't need to try to get something from others that's not available there, actually, that it's a false illusion that it's out there anyway. I can actually just put my roots down deep into Mother Earth, and I can receive everything I need from my spirit and from the earth. And then when you do that, you become self-reliant. And it's not towards being an island or a lone wolf, although that is part of the pattern that happens at first, because we've got to break the pattern of codependency. But what happens is that there's this phase of sovereignty that sets in that says, I don't need anybody else. I just need myself. And we have a lot of independence, right? That comes from that place. And then through the independence, though, on the other side of the independence is this heart opening and this reestablishment of trust that we can actually, when we're doing our own work on ourselves and we claim responsibility for ourselves and we know that the power is within. And so if we're feeling powerless, that's an inner job. When we know that, we can be in community with each other and we can be in co-creation with each other from a place of self-responsibility. And then that is interdependence. So no one can survive on their own independently as an island. This is true. But we're in the process of, eradicating that crazy system of squeezing each other with our roots and just putting the roots down in the soil and being informed by that higher truth and that deeper knowing, so that we can be in greater service to each other towards a common objective. Right. So we're in the process right now, and it looks like mayhem. It looks totally crazy. And because it is, the whole system that we've been living in is psychosis. That is what psychosis looks like. Psychosis is not what I was going through. I was going through a recognition that I was insane because I was listening to all this stuff. And then they were like, well, you're just insane because you're too sensitive. And I'm like, no, my heart's actually open. And I feel what we're doing to each other. And this is not right. This is completely backwards. And when I finally found the roots and I finally, got a teacher to show me how to ground and another teacher to show me where my energy body was, who I was, separate from everybody else. Like I have to know who I am first, that piece of sovereignty, that piece of self-knowing. Now I can come at things in a whole different way. And I shut all the masks off. I said, I'm not going to be what you want me to be. And yeah, you can be upset with me for being the mean mommy because, I'm not going to buy you cookies for your school lunch because your dad said that was bad of me. But I have my own knowing. No, that's not where I want to spend my resource. If you want to eat something healthy, here you go. So I'm not just going to do what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so powerful. Wow. It goes back to the ancients knew all of this. I'm also been a yoga instructor, and we often talk about grounding, and what that means. And it's very interesting because you talk about false identity, and you say many of us spend the currency of our life force in a mediocre version of life. And you have just so eloquently told the story of what that means, because I love the way that you put that, the currency of our life force. because we are individuals, but that doesn't mean that we can't come together to help one another. It's just that we need to find out who we are first. And yeah, it's a very interesting way to put it. But I love that you say the masks come off, because I always say that we are here and we come with our gifts, but often we don't unwrap them because the universe is just waiting for us to say yes. And so often we don't say yes. We just keep going through and living that false identity and staying on the path of conformity. Because like you say, you want to fit in. And it's not that you don't fit in when you're one, but you're walking your own truth. And beautiful. I think that's fascinating. Was there anything you wanted to add to that about false identity? Because I think you really hit the nail on the head with that.
Well, I'll just add that because this was in the back of my mind earlier, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull it forward. When you take the path of your authentic sovereign self, right? You're connecting in with your soul. You are now you're kind of like, eradicating is too strong of a word, but you are removing yourself. You're untangling yourself from all the structures of codependency and falseness that up until now you've been living your life according to. And one of those systems is, breaking taboos. So, for example, in my mother's generation, nobody ever aired their, quote, dirty laundry. Like, nobody ever shared what was actually going on behind closed doors. They just put on the presentation that everything was perfect. And then they would go privately, and they may not even discuss things with their partner. It was like it's all about secrets. And so when I started putting my books out in total transparency of my journey and my affairs and my, attempts to get love from outside of myself, and like over and over again, just sort of like stomping myself on the ground with these guys. I mean, my mom was like, she was so upset that I was going to publish this book, and like, you can't publish that. And she got my son on board, who was, really innocent and young at the time. And he's like, Mommy, this is only for you. Like, you can't share that with everybody. They're going to think horrible things about you. And I've never had one negative comment about that book. Like, I think just people have so much compassion because I'm so honest about my own foibles, right? And my own misconceptions, that people just see themselves in it. And how can you judge that when you're just like, I do that too. I've done that too. So I think we've given each other permission to be real and to be human. And that's taking off the false identity. And it's not that I don't, from time to time, still realize there's a piece of me that's being false. But the way I handle that is I keep putting myself outside the edge of my comfort zone, because comfort is where false lives. And so when you place yourself outside the comfort zone and you open yourself to a new initiation, the shamanic path is all about initiation. When you say yes to that next initiation and you don't give up on it, you commit to it, even when it gets uncomfortable, you can be sure you're going to release some more false identity, which is fabulous, because then you're more free. You can just be who you are.
Yeah. I love that, Kerri. Comfort is where false lives. That is so powerful. So much more powerful than just saying move out of your comfort zone, because we hear that a lot these days. But if you associate that with the false you, then it's like, oh yeah, this is the reason why. Absolutely. Well, you can tell us that there is a cracked identity, and we're talking about identities, but this really resonated with me, and I think it will resonate with a lot of individuals. There's two patterns when this identity is threatened. Share that with our audience, because when I read this, I immediately thought of people I know, and I thought, oh, they have a cracked identity. So it was really great, the association, but just share with our audience the meaning of that and how people, their reaction to what is happening.
Yeah, this is from a teaching by Jet Saris, actually, who I tried to get on my podcast unsuccessfully, but she's an amazing person. And when I heard this too, I was like, oh, wow, like the cracked identity, this is what I'm experiencing. So the cracked identity is like the wounded self. You know, you could say it's the one within you that feels broken, unwanted, unheard, unloved. You know, it's like the part of you that got hurt somehow, the part of you that feels alone and abandoned. And what happens when that gets touched is that this sort of protector identity comes out and defends you. And that is actually, I mean, this is what causes most people to react, to have all the strategies like, I'm going to please, and I'm not going to tell you how I really feel because I don't want a conflict, or I'm going to escape and run away, or I'm going to distract myself or numb myself, or all of these things because, or I'm going to fight, you know, so sometimes it's fighting. I'm going to fight you on this and have debates with you endlessly from the mind, right? But this cracked identity, when we actually get to access that, there's a great deal of power, because when we finally cultivate enough trust with these aspects of ourselves, we can bring love to that one, and we can bring reconnection to that one. We can accept
Mm,
and embrace that one within us. And when we see that cracked identity in others, then after having embraced our own, we can actually have some compassion for the journey. And I would say compassion, not pity. You know, I mean, this is
mm,
where victim consciousness gets us in this place of like, oh, I'm so sorry that you're going through that. Really?
mm,
Actually, maybe I should say, I'm so happy that you finally accessed your cracked identity and that you feel the wounding deep inside, because that means you're ready to heal it. That means that you're ready to embrace that part of you. I'm so happy that you see it now. I'm so happy you're feeling that now, because then you have liberation at your fingertips when you finally say yes
mm.
to it. So I think that we have it, you know, we really got to be mindful or mind empty. I toggle
That's
with
true.
that one. Yeah, but we got to realize, like Don Miguel Ruiz says in The Mastery of Love, don't believe me, don't believe yourself, and don't believe anyone else, because we're all lying to ourselves. We're all caught in the Maya, in the delusion. And
Mm,
what's only true is that we are all love. We are all divine and we are all love. And so is everything else. And so when we find that cracked identity, we know that that is something that we feel preciously as a human being. Because why? Because we have forgotten who we are in truth.
right. Exactly. Yes, absolutely. And you see, you have the awareness, but most people go through life with those reactions. Like you say, some will react with anger, and because that's the pain that's underlying, and others will retreat and go inside themselves, but they're unaware that it's that we call it pushing their buttons. But what is it that is pushing their buttons? I think a lot of, unfortunately, people are afraid to go there. They don't want to know. And then again, there it is, living in your comfort zone, right? I mean, that's human.
Mhm.
A lot of human nature is we don't want to upset the apple cart because that's our reptilian brain. We're familiar with this feeling. We can live with it. It's like, even though we're not happy about it, or maybe we are, you get so accustomed to it, it becomes your personal reality, which then becomes your personality, as Dr. Joe Dispenza likes to put it. But this is all about choosing to be real, as you put it. So, what does that really mean when we know our true self? You said it's choosing our purpose. Give us a little insight into that.
Yeah, because it's when we have to remember that we're caught in the psychosis, the groupthink of
Mm,
humanity, which up until now has been in psychosis because we've been operating in the shadow patterns largely. So sometimes people think they're being authentic, but what they're actually being is deluded, you know, and their
mm,
mind is sort of cleverly creating excuses for why not to follow through with a commitment on a soul plan, for example. Like if you commit to a transformational program that's going to connect you more deeply with your soul, what's going to happen is that there's going to be this inner argument over continuing in that work, because part of you is going to know that this is the path to freedom. and it's going to urge you forward. Like, keep going. You made it this far. You said yes. Keep going. Don't quit. The other part of you is going to say, I am going to cleverly invent millions of reasons why I can't do this right now. And people will like manifest all kinds of crazy circumstances in their life as excuses. And so that they don't have to take responsibility to say, yeah, I decided I don't feel like awakening. So I'm not going to. I'm going to go watch TV with my mom every Tuesday night at 7 because that's, like what I'm going to do. Right. Or I'm going to oh, there's this new project. I'm going to go do this shiny project instead. It's much more alluring because it saves me from the discomfort of this transformational thing. So people delude themselves all over the place, and they think that they're being authentic because they're speaking some truth that they feel inside themselves. But I'm just sitting back because I've already I've already been through so many initiations, right? Of like where I had to do something. I knew it was the right thing inside of myself to proceed with something that was making me uncomfortable and to keep going and not quit. And so I did. I didn't quit. Like, I just kept going. And not only that, but like more deeper, right? So every time I've done that, I've become more aware of the way my own mind would create excuses, right? For why I shouldn't, or why I don't have time, or why I'm too busy or overcommitted, or I don't have the resource, or whatever the thing is. Like, and it's amazing how people can call to them external things that seem like it's not them creating it, but it's completely them creating it. So choosing to be real is to stay the course. Once you decide on a course, a direction, stay the course until it completes. Don't give up. Because if it's kind of like, this is how I explain it. Like, if you've ever done plant medicine, you wouldn't go into a plant medicine ceremony, take the plant medicine, and then leave the ceremony and go drive your car around town. Like, that's not the appropriate decision. You would stay in a ceremony until the medicine has run its course and until you've had the integration and you've really processed everything deeply, and then you're ready to move to the next place with clarity. But if you find yourself with a ton of like excuse, reason, that's not your authentic self. That's your ego. So people get really deluded by that. And I try to be as compassionate as I can. And as a mentor, that's one of my things I'm working on, is how do I not judge that when it comes up? How do I just see that that's just the pattern of the egoic control system? And so we're releasing a soul from that cage. And, the soul is having an experience of itself, liberating itself from this cage. And some people just go through all kinds of iterations of this process on the way there. So we can't really argue with the process of it. I think that people get what they need no matter what choice they make. But it's kind of like, do you want the easy road or the hard road? I choose the easy road after having the hard road. And I like to offer people the easy road. And even the easy road isn't easy, as you know, because there's all these challenges that come up. You've got to, in your heart, the right thing, the decision, and yet you put your brakes on doing it. And you go back to watching TV or drinking wine, or in this days, smoking pot, so it's like, we have to question ourselves. We can't believe what we think. In other words, that was a gift I actually had, Jane, was that all that time that they kept telling me I was crazy, I finally saw this Einstein quote that said, you can't solve a problem from the same system that created it. And I went, oh, well, if my mind is mentally ill, then I better not listen to anything it thinks. I better only listen to my heart. So in a way, I had a saving grace,
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. Yeah. So it really is, it's an awakening, and it's interesting because we, like I believe you practice this all the time. And this is what I say, is that life is a practice. We live, we learn, and then we practice what we've learned, and we grow from that. And like you, I'm always learning. And and you take these kernels of information and knowledge in, and hopefully one day, like you, the light bulb will go on, and it doesn't mean that it's going to not flicker, because we all have
It
those
flickers.
times, right? And it could even go out sometimes. But it's, if you turn that switch back on, that's the key. That's the key. So speaking of that, reclaiming our power, give us an idea of how we can reclaim our power. Now, I know this could be, an entire 5-hour episode, but just give our audience a few tidbits of how we can go about our lives and taking the steps to initiate reclaiming our power.
Yeah. So in my path of shamanism, my power reclamation has been through Jaguar energy. And so Jaguar is the stalker. This is from my Toltec training and also from my study with Alberto Vialdo. But the Jaguar is the one that hunts. The Jaguar hunts in the dark. It stalks its prey. And the Jaguar never misses its mark. It always gets it. It has these really long fangs that when it can just pierce the back of the skull, and it just, right? So rather than use that Jaguar energy to hunt others, we use it to hunt ourselves. We use it to track ourselves. And any little bit of conditioning that your Jaguar energy becomes aware of and mulches, digests, or, if we're going to be violent with our communication, kills, any bit of that gets transmuted and alchemized and released is more of your power. Because the only thing that could ever take our power is ourselves believing in limitation. And so anything that's limiting us that we give our power to by believing in it is, something we can reclaim our power from by stopping believing in it. But we have to become aware that we believe in it, right? So this is an awareness practice. Reclaiming your power is over time. You become aware of where you're giving it away. And it's not that anybody's trying to take it. It's just that the systems are set up. If people are plugged into the matrix, they're, just by default doing that tree roots around your trunk thing, and they don't remember that they can put them down in the ground. So we are the ones that have to remember that for ourselves.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And understanding that, what that means, having some bit of knowledge to understand that we're actually, like you said, giving it away, and then maybe reflecting as to why that is. Like you say, it's often it's the ego. It could be the recording of the past. I mean, there's so much, as I call it, static. I love to say that, because we all emit energy, and it all comes out in a frequency, and that becomes a that affects the collective, and the frequency is what you are emitting. So you're right. I mean, there really is a relationship between who we are and what we are projecting, and that consciousness of, okay, this is good or this is not good. Yeah, it's very,
Yeah, and
very.
it's
Go
also the
ahead.
storytelling, right? So it's how we use our word, and we use our word often unconsciously because the word is the most powerful tool we have to co-create something with the universe, is our power of word. And
Mhm.
this is actually the one area that the conformity matrix disempowers through teaching us patterns and ways of using our word, that we take our own power away through using the word. So I'll give you an example. So one of the patterns I had to break, or I got the chance to rewire, was I don't know. Like, how many
Mhm.
people walk around saying, I don't know? Well, that is super disempowering, because, of course, you're calling into being a reality in which you constantly don't know. And you're in confusion
Mhm.
and doubt and all the other shadows, right? So instead of saying that, you could rewire that to say, I'm in the process of knowing the answer to that question. And now you've created an opening that acknowledges that in the moment you might not have the answer, but you know that it is in the process of being delivered to you, of you realizing it. And so you're leaving that window open for yourself to get the answer. So, so often what we put after I am, man, that dictates where our power is going and how we are writing the story of our lives and how things are going to unfold. So I learned that lesson painfully through 20 years of psychotherapy sessions weekly. Like I was using my word with powerful emotions to basically undermine myself. And because of that experience and experiencing the consequences of that choice, which I didn't realize was a choice at the time because I was in victim consciousness, but once I woke up to the fact that that was a choice and I could write my own mythic story and I could use a word to power myself and to honor myself and to craft the potential that I wish to experience by expressing that word, I was like, oh, okay, how can I become even better at using my word? So that's another way that we can reclaim our power, is to get really aware of how we're using our word.
Absolutely, 100%. I always say words they have power. They do. They have a vibration as well. And it's when you say that, you're saying it to yourself. And they are so important. The I ams, like that you said. Yeah, and I've caught people and they're going, oh yeah, you're right. Like they'll say, oh, it's so difficult to be in this situation. And I said, well, okay, let's say, do you know what you just said? And you said, yeah, it's so difficult. I said, well, remember this, the universe always says yes. So if you say it's so difficult, guess what? It will be. And
It will be.
the light bulb,
You don't want to
yeah, it will
experience
be.
that.
Exactly. So but it, like you said, like I say, it's a practice. It's a practice because we have to be aware, we have to be conscious, and then we have to go, okay. And I'll even go back and say, no, I take that back. This is what I really mean.
Cancel clear.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you for sharing that, because I love that you brought that up, because I have told and blogged on that the power of our word is really something that we do to ourselves, for positive or negative. And speaking of power, now I love this intention. It's vital that we have a clear intention. And how does that affect the flow of energy? Because we often, especially in the Western world, talk about goals. What are our goals? What's your goal for this? What's your goal for that? But really, intention is the powerhouse.
Yes, intent is the power. And so when we set an intention, we are calling into being an intention, let's say, to manifest a dream of ours. And there's a lot of work out there about manifestation, law of attraction, things like that. But what I think a lot of it misses is that when we set intention, if it's a big enough intention, what's going to happen, not only big enough, but true, what's going to happen is that the universe is going to say yes to that in a big way. And then all of this life is going to conspire to support you in becoming the person that actualizes that intention into form, into being. And that process is the process we've been talking about here, which is the not comfort process. It's the process of facing the things within yourself that, in order to be what you say you want to be, in order to actualize that intention, you might need some upgrades. You might need some more mastery. You might require some more information, knowledge, wisdom, lived experience. You might need to connect with more people that you currently avoid because of some insecurity, or you might need to put yourself in a new context. Like there's so many endless possibilities for how the universe might guide you to experience what you need to experience in order to embody that wisdom, that knowledge, that power, that expanded capacity. in order for the thing to manifest that you say you want. And that process takes however much time it takes, and it really can't be rushed. And so there's this also this sort of deepening into trust about life with the power of
Mm.
intention, which is that I know that I placed my order with the universe and I claimed for myself, I made a bid for power and I claimed this intention for myself in service to, and the more it's in service to a collective or someone outside of yourself, the more power the universe gives it, and gives you.
Mm.
So when you're doing that, you have to trust that everything that's coming up in your life is the way. I've had lots of mentoring on this for myself because, of course, when you make this intention for creating New Earth and creating communities based in New Earth and love and light and prosperity and all of these beautiful intentions, what happens is that you need to be cleared of the things that would not be in alignment with that intention. And you go through a refinement process. And then that means that everything that's happening in your life that you feel may be provoked by or challenged by is actually the universe saying, yes, we heard you. We love this. We're putting our full support behind it. So this is the work you need to do right now in order to actualize that. And so therefore life is happening by you because you set the intention. It's happening for you because the universe said yes. And it's happening through you because however else can it happen? You've got to go through it, embody it, experience it in order to actualize it. So there's no bypassing. And, so I always love it when people talk about, simple mantras as like, la, 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 la. And I'm just going to say my mantra and it's all just going to be handed to me like a kid on Christmas morning. And that's not exactly the way it works. It's, you're actually going to have to do some self-reflection and some inner mastery in order to actualize anything of any significance.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Well, that is the la la la, and I say these mantras, and it's going to come true. I mean, those are the individuals that don't have the knowledge yet. I have hope that they will gain the knowledge, because like I've said to you earlier, and I continue to learn and grow, and the knowledge is there for our taking now. It wasn't in my earlier years, in my 20s, the way you speak about love and Mother Earth, it'd be like, oh, she's a hippie. I mean, it was just like, you remember those days? It's like, oh yeah, she's a love child. She's just a hippie. And I don't know if those people were in tune, or they just, were hippies. I have no idea, but but it's now coming full circle, because we actually have scientific proof, which is something our Western minds need, or our culture needs. So all of this, the heart math and the energy, and how our thoughts create our emotions, and the emotions are the feelings, which are, it just goes on and on and on the scientific level. But like I said, and you said, the ancients have known this for eons. It's just that we thought that was just woohoo, as they used to call it, or they still call it, or, oh, she's a hippie child, the flower child. I remember those. But anyway, yeah, absolutely. I love it. I love what you were saying about, these challenges are happening for you and to you because you have asked for it. The universe hears you. I thought that was fascinating, just fascinating. So thank you for sharing that. And now, the inner leader. Explain what you mean by the inner leader and its relevance to transformation. You mentioned that some call it the navigator, the explorer. Give us your insight into the inner leader.
Yeah. So this story I share, and this is really cute because I was a kid and my dad liked to play jokes on me. And I would be following him everywhere. Like literally I would just follow him everywhere. And one day we were at the beach with my friend at the time. I was in second grade and I was following my dad around just like I always did. And then I didn't realize though that he was walking in circles and everybody else realized it and stopped following him. But I was like right on his heels, just following him. And he scooped me up and he just said, Kerri, and you realize you've just been following me blindly. And I was so embarrassed because everyone else realized it, but I didn't. And he had such compassion for me, but he also wanted me to remember to follow my inner leader. Like, always be aware. Don't just blindly follow other people. So I think this really hints at that sovereignty piece and the intuition that we've been conditioned to think is so naughty and you can't trust it and it's woo woo and it's all this, these judgments about something that is actually quite sacred and unique for each person. And the teaching that always comes through me about this is the unique thumbprint. So we have a unique thumbprint. Isn't that interesting? Because I don't believe anything is by mistake. I believe everything is by sacred geometry, by absolute design. And so when our thumbprint is unique, to me, that means we're all unique. And if we're all unique, then following someone else blindly is not going to serve you. How could it possibly serve you? And so community now becomes part of a new matrix where everyone is following their inner leader, their inner guidance, their soul. They're listening inside, and that might be their spirit team or their own heart or their body or Mother Earth, whatever that looks like for each person. And to whatever mechanism helps you access that is what you need to follow. And when you follow that, you might find yourself in some friction with others because they might not like that you just made a choice that is causing them some kind of discomfort. But the thing is that when I was writing the book, Healing the Mother Wound, one of the messages that came strongly through the guide for that book was White Buffalo Calf Woman. And she told me on multiple occasions, Kerri, your lessons are not his lessons, talking about my son, and his lessons are not yours. But you have to follow your inner leader and trust that, because sometimes the divine uses you and your choice as a catalyst for growth for the other person. And if you don't make that decision, you miss that opportunity for that growth to be catalyzed for the other person simply by you following your inner leader. So this is where we untangle ourselves for some sense of responsibility for doing something to someone else, which is like really kind of impossible. So we're not doing it to anybody. We're just following our inner leader, and that is guiding us to make choices. And those choices might disrupt somebody else's life, but maybe that disruption is exactly what's needed in their journey right now. And so, to not make ourselves, especially as mothers, responsible for everybody else's journey and like preventing all their pain and their suffering and this, that, and the other, like that's part of their journey. That's the journey they're here to take. So as long as you're really listening to your inner leader and whatever method you've decided or found that gives you good answers, you got to follow that and then just let the chips fall where they may.
So powerful. Whatever they're experiencing because they're meant to. It's not because of what you're doing. That is such a different way to look at it. The perspective is so powerful. When you look at things that way, it changes the entire story. It's like, no, it's not my fault. It's what you're here to experience. Wow, such insight. Thank you for sharing that. Talk to us about the center of the medicine wheel, and you speak about a dream beckoning us to be woven through us. That's so eloquent, and for me, it really resonated. Give us some feedback on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I often tell my students this. I mean, the medicine wheel has a couple of different entry points, and some cultures start in the east, right? And they start in the east, and then you move to the south, the west, and the north. And for me, I followed my teacher Alberto Vialdo in this. Is that the south to me is the entry point, because the south is about where am I right now. Like, what is actually happening in my life today, right now? And so, if you've never entered the medicine wheel, what better space to enter the medicine wheel with where I am right now, rather than what dream do I want to plant in the future? I don't want to plant that seed until I've gone around the wheel. I want to know where I am right now, what I think, what's my conditioning, what masks am I wearing, what empowerment do I need to claim for myself, what do I need to understand about myself? And then I want to go to the West and I want to release it. I want to see through the smoky mirror more clearly. I want to work with Jaguar. I want to mulch all that stuff. I want to disentangle myself, liberate myself. Then I want to go to the North and I want to work with the ancestors to clear any remnants of that in the ancestry, because we're at the turning of the ages. I want to clear that. And I don't want that to be passed down. So I want to work with the ancestors and I want to work with my soul to write a new mythic story and, process my past by elevating it to the level of soul. And then I want to go to the East and plant my seeds, and ask for that bid for power, and then sometimes we want to just go to the center after completing the wheel and be still and just listen. So less striving, less figuring out, less making it happen. I mean, after a certain point, it's just go to the center and listen. What is here for me? And the reason for that is really because, it was made clear to me by one of my guides, White Eagle, that if you think about this, Kerri, there's this fog of shadows all around humanity because we've been living in the shadowy aspects of our awareness. And it's like a big fog. And so, how do you know from the middle of the fog what New Earth looks like? You have no idea what's possible. So, in order to, sort of access the greatest potential, we have to get still. We have to get quiet and we got to listen and open up that channel to higher guidance. Like put that nice big light tunnel up to the higher dimensions. Let the information pour through us. Let it integrate. Really feel it, experience it, and have a moment of epiphany or realization from that. And then even if we don't understand it, because probably we won't, because if it's really coming through like that, it's experientially blissful, peaceful, like there's samadhi, right? Like there's these experiences that are almost indescribable. You have to experience it yourself to really understand. And you might get goosebumps and body chills when it's happening, like, ooh, there's something going on. And the mind just can't, it's a limited construct. It cannot understand what's possible multidimensionally. So sometimes words just can't get it. And you've got to be still and just experience that feeling and let it penetrate you, immerse in you, let the perfume move around you, and let it saturate, and then see, what it guides you to, what that energy, like where would that energy guide me?
Right. It's the feeling. It's all about the experience, the feeling. That's the energy moving through you. There's a beautiful quote that goes, "To the mind that is still, the universe surrenders." So that's exactly what I believe you were referring to. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And that is a practice and something that, especially us in the Western world, we want to embrace, because it really is something that when you feel that samadhi, when you feel that experience, you realize there's so much more. It's not about the doing. It's not about the stuff. It's not about the grasping or the reaching. It's about you. It's about us. It's about what's inside of us. We are so incredible beings, but we just don't know it, and that's the opening, right? That's the opening. Yeah, for sure. Well, Kerri, thank you so much for that. That was beautiful. And tell our audience about your free gift and your podcast.
Yeah. So the free gift is the Inner Medicine Meditation Pack, and it contains meditations to support your journey. It contains a grounding meditation and help you get in your body, because some of us are sensitive. We don't like to get all the way into the toes. So it supports that grounding and also shielding, on our journey. That's just part of it. Sometimes we feel like we got a shield from negative energy until we realize we just got to heal it within ourselves. But for a little while, it helps to have a shielding, meditation to kind of help you know yourself. And it also contains this what is mine, what is theirs, which many of my students love, because when we're in relationships, sometimes, especially as empathic people, it gets confusing. Like, what part of this is mine and what part of this is this other person's? Mm-hmm. So I have a couple of meditations help you discern that. And then also some tobacco clearing and rattle clearing meditations, because I work with the medicine of tobacco, the sacred medicine of tobacco, calling in that master to support clearing the falls, and also work with rattles for the same. So there's just a couple clearing meditations. So that's really, it's a nice augment to whatever practice you already have going on. And so I love to offer that. That's at my website. And I think you have the URL, but it's kerrihummingbird.com/inner medicine. And then my podcast is Soul Nectar Show, which is it's just conversations like this. And I like to share other people's medicine and have conversations about spirituality like we have today. And I'd love to have you on the show if you want to come. I think that'd be fun. So yeah, I love having these conversations, and people that can have these conversations are really delightful, because you've reached a level of depth in your own journey that you can actually have this conversation and know what each other's talking about. That's kind of nice to build community around that level of depth. So I love to do that.
Absolutely. Yes, I encourage everyone to get the free downloads and to check out Kerri's podcast, because this is a topic that we all need to learn more about. And if you're on the journey, even better. If you haven't started, well, get started. Now is the time. Well, thank you for sharing that. Exactly. It never, never, ever is. And because we're here, Kerri, on the Epic Vision Zone, I have one last question for you. If your life were an epic story, what would the title be?
That's so good. What would my title be? Anything is possible. And it would just be Hummingbird's Awakening.
I love that. Absolutely. That says it all, for sure. Well, once again, thank you, Kerri, for joining us here today. And be sure to get her information on the Epic Vision Zone bio pages, where you will find all of her social media and direct contact information. And be sure to follow me on Instagram at Jane Applegath. And don't forget to connect with me at janeapplegath.com, where you can access your free downloads, creative power, and vision play sheet. Sending you much love and gratitude. This is the Epic Vision Zone, transforming your dreams into epic success.